Yeah, I know it's been a little while. We
Been a
had
few weeks of no video.
been having a lit summer, so
Listen, I'm not even sorry.
yeah, no. I
Go
mean,
back and
kind of
watch the
sorry.
old shit.
Yeah, for
I
real.
don't know what to tell
We
you.
left y'all with some heat.
Yeah.
But today we're talking about a really dope thing. We're back at the Newberry Library. But before all that,
You know what time it is. Subscribe, rate, comment, and if you've been to the Newberry Library, comment that because it's one of our favorite libraries, and
Yeah.
we want to know who else loves it because it's iconic.
yeah, facts. We really do want to know that. But today we're talking about Chicago's first newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Democratic National Convention is here back from
This week, yep.
96, I think was the last time it was here.
Yeah.
Something like that. And so the paper was called the Chicago Democrat.
Right.
Let's
Different Democrat.
yeah.
Time, but
Yeah,
Democrat.
right, for real. So we're gonna get into it and learn about it. It was actually started in 1833 when
Right.
Chicago was a town
Yeah.
by John Calhoun, who was a New Yorker. That's all the information I'm gonna give you right now because it's
Yeah.
actually a pretty cool story.
Yep.
And we're gonna see if they got the paper here for you. We tried to
Look
see
it
if
up
they,
online.
yeah, but
I
it
think it's like you could just go into
And
the
get it.
second floor and look at it. So
Yeah.
if there's any place that's gonna have it, it's gonna be the Newberry.
absolutely insane if it's
yeah.
just up out just like
Right.
that. I mean, they let us have it even with the special collection. So
Right.
nonetheless,
So let's go inside.
yeah. So check it out. Right now we are here in the second floor of the Newberry Library trying to figure out if they actually have the paper. Online it wasn't, it said it was on second floor, but they're going to go down there and see if it's actually in good condition to use. In the meantime, we're checking the digital collections right here. And we actually got John Calhoun's letters that he wrote about it. So yeah, stay tuned. We might have it, we might not. Who knows? All right. So that was a failed mission.
So
Yeah.
they're in such bad condition that we can't even look at them. No one can handle them. They're trying to figure out how to digitize them. But I think we have a lead. So
Yeah, we have a lead. But right now, all you're gonna get are these PDFs and the print images that we got. So
we'll be right.
we'll be right back. So life update. We can't get it because it's so brittle. However,
Super.
we do have this PDF that we
Yep.
can show you and
Yeah.
of somebody who took a picture with their phone right before Newberry took it off display
Right.
because it's so brittle.
is
It's
too fragile.
Yeah, it's fragile. You can make out some things here, which is pretty cool.
We'll zoom into
Yeah.
maybe some sections or something. You
Yeah.
can pause and zoom in, whatever.
Yeah. However, some history about the paper. So, like I said, it was started by John Calhoun in 1833. Now, the significance of that is John Calhoun was from New York,
Right.
and he was a printer, publisher out there in New York, and he wanted to kind of like explore the American frontier.
Right. This was like
Yeah.
the new West
Yes.
that people were like moving to.
Yeah.
And so
He wanted
his-
to explore that.
his friend came back from Chicago and was like, "Hey, have you heard about this place called Chicago?" And he
Yeah.
was like, "I haven't, but let's go check it
Yeah.
out." And
Now,
he
keep in mind, this is Chicago as a town.
as a town.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like he's not saying Chicago as what we know it
Right.
in like not
No.
even 1837.
No,
you
it
know?
was nothing.
Yeah, it was nothing.
Yeah.
So what he did was he moved from New York and came to Chicago. He
Right.
actually took all his printing materials.
Yeah.
Everything he did. So he was like expand his horizons,
Right.
literally.
And he had a monopoly on
He did.
printing in Chicago. There was no other printer. There was no one else publishing newspapers. So.
Yeah. And so with that, he created a paper that was politically based at that time,
Right.
right? To reach that group of people, right?
Right.
And at that time, it was the Democrats.
Yeah.
And
And he wanted to be in politics. He
Yeah.
eventually went on to become treasurer, but of DuPage County.
Cook County.
Cook County, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Cook County.
And rumor says that he traded the paper for that
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
So he was like, have the paper, give me that position.
the wildest thing about that is that he was a little burnout from doing his trying to get into that field,
Yep.
but also trying to run this new paper here in Chicago that was published daily.
Right.
Right. In 1835, the paper had just come back from a hiatus, so they had done some, the paper, right?
years.
Couple years, and then they went on like a stretch where they didn't have anything. In 1835 was when they came back. He actually issued an apology for it. Roughly
Yeah.
around that time, what was it? 36, 37 is when he gave
Gave
it
it
to Long John something.
What?
Wentworth. There we
Wentworth,
go.
who later was twice mayor of Chicago. But when they first started the paper, they only had 150 something people that subscribed to the paper that
Out of
would get
out
it.
of control.
So
Yeah.
that's.
There-
Chicago was probably like what 300 people.
Yeah. And so the paper, long story short, I guess, it kind of went through its paces, right, of change, and the rival was the Republican Party.
Right.
So
Well, it was the Whig.
The
at
Whig,
time,
yes.
Right, the Whig, WHIG.
Yeah.
And they started a paper that was the Republican
yeah,
Party
right,
paper.
right, yeah.
And yeah, that kind of like also took off. So it was no longer a monopoly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was no longer mine. Long story short, too, again, I said that twice.
Yeah.
Long story short, I'm going to say it
It's a
again.
long story long.
Yeah.
Fine.
In a roundabout way, the Chicago Tribune became the owner of it. So I guess you can kind of say that the Tribune is the Chicago Democrat. Kind of, not saying it, but like it's got histories to it because the ownership changed hands.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to see a location where
Where their offices were.
Yeah.
And at one point they were above a hardware store, so it's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
But we're pretty close to it. But before we do that, we have a quick pit stop. We're actually going to the Carbon and Carbide building, and it's one of my favorite buildings. It
Yes.
looks like a champagne
Art
bottle
Deco.
top. And speaking of champagne bottles, we're actually there because there's a new Art Deco like cocktail. This is not sponsored by that. It's just we're doing that.
right, we just kicking it.
So there's actually a new cocktail book about like inspired by the Art Deco style of Chicago. So we thought we would check that out and throw that in here for you guys to see, and then we'll head over to the site of the paper. Let's get it.
Well, first of all, thank y'all for taking the time. We know you got a book signing coming up, so appreciate you all taking the time and to meet with us. We said it several times, but this is pretty cool to meet the folks that put together such a good thing about
Such a
Chicago.
cool
So,
book. Art
not just
Deco,
Chicago,
yeah,
Art
I was
Deco, yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say.
yeah. See, look at Chicago.
High
You always want to take
rises.
everything.
Well, it's exciting to get a chance to talk with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank
So what, basic question, what was kind of the inspiration, why high rises and why more specifically Art Deco?
Yeah, so I did a project in Philly first of historic row homes, and those were like the same time period. They're all
Yep.
built in like the
Yep.
1910s, 20s, and that era just has such beautiful buildings. Like
Right.
there was something about the craftsmanship, the artisans, that like not just the skyscrapers, but even just the houses, like
Yeah.
even just working houses, not
Yeah.
anything fancy. There'd be all these cool details. So I did that. And then I wanted to find another project that would like introduce new challenges. So, I mean, I love skyscrapers too. I went
Yeah.
into architecture as a kid because I'd look up at, where I'm from, Philadelphia. I'd
Yeah.
go into the city and be like, oh
Yeah.
crap, like look at these
Yeah,
massive
yeah, yeah.
buildings. So any kid would. And then the other challenge of like using a drone to capture them
Right.
and also traveling around. It's a great opportunity to travel the
Absolutely.
USA, you know?
So,
Yeah.
And for me, for
Yep.
skyscraper or for Art Deco, it was so I'd written a book already about the first skyscrapers ever built in all the cities across America. So pre-Art Deco,
Yeah.
and I wanted to do an Art Deco skyscrapers book. So I was trying to figure out how I would do that, but the one thing I knew was a challenge.
Yeah.
So I'm a writer,
uh-huh.
not an artist
Yeah.
or a photographer,
Yeah.
and I knew that anything about Art Deco was going to be really decisive. The imagery had to be great.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so I was trying to figure out how I could get really great images of Art Deco skyscrapers to accompany
Mhm.
writing.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I met this guy, and his pictures of Art Deco skyscrapers are unlike any that have ever
Yeah.
been made before.
They're fantastic. So you saw the pictures, reached out to him and said, hey, look, I got this idea.
Yeah, so it
Or-
was. I was actually looking to just talk to other authors that have written books on skyscrapers, just for like, just general questions.
Yeah.
And books. Or Mark's first book's cover was intriguing, so on like Google Images, I like found his book and gave him a call. And I just happened to be going to Pittsburgh the next week.
Oh, wow.
So I was just asking general questions, and
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, you're gonna be in town. Let's like grab some breakfast. And then it's like, I want to do a book too. I was like, oh, this is gonna work great. So
That is
That's
amazing.
amazing.
fortuitous, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. That's a fantastic. We can stop right here. Like we get it. We get it.
We did it.
Yeah, we
It's
did
all
it. Yeah.
done.
That's a really cool story.
So I want to know, like, with the drone, because you use drones to get these shots. Are you scared? Because I have a drone.
Yeah,
Like,
you know, you know the anxiety.
yeah, the anxiety to
Flying that high?
Flying that high. Do you fly? Like, do you go to the roof and fly it from the roof? Is
No,
that what you do?
Mostly from the street.
This is like 37 stories, so that's
Yeah. It's all the way up there, and I would like to say I got a perfect record. I
Okay,
haven't-
okay.
I'm using the same drone as I started.
Good.
I haven't gone through.
It's like it's actually a very expensive book
yeah, yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's been
Yeah.
15
Yeah.
drones.
Okay.
every building I lost.
Right.
I'm about to say, Mark, what is the insurance plan like? Talk to me.
Yeah, right.
Because you are like an alibi to this, man. For you write
that's-
about it. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I was a spotter for a lot of the shoots.
were you?
We call him a visual observer, according to the FAA.
Okay.
The official title marks my visual observer.
Okay,
for
so
some
is
of
it
them.
like?
Oh, so you traveled
Yeah.
also with him to get
That's
all the
crazy.
shots.
I would say
Not
about
all of them, yeah. 25%.
something,
That's
maybe
a lot.
third of them, something
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
together. I mean, I visited every one of the buildings in the
Right.
book too.
Yeah.
Maybe a half dozen I didn't.
Yeah.
But I went either separately or for many of them we traveled together. So
And-
in Chicago, for instance,
Yeah.
we traveled together. I mean, he did the shoots on his own or with some other photographers, but then we visited the buildings
Yeah.
together. And then some of the shoots, like in the South or to Nebraska,
Yeah.
to
You're
Lincoln,
like, no,
Nebraska, we
Yeah,
did
for
those
real.
together. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Long road
And then
trip.
what was the process of like picking out the buildings and like the stories that you chose to tell when you were doing the actual writing part?
Yeah, well, the writing part. I mean, it started with the visuals. Really, like we're not going to write a story if the building isn't photogenic or
Right.
it's not, and that's just about like the variety. If one building maybe looks too much like another, or generally, one thing if they're too wide, because the tall, narrow.
Right.
We
Yeah.
didn't want to have like one image in the collection landscape that would
Yeah.
kind of throw
Yeah.
it off. So that cut us down, but. Generally, just the ones that I thought looked really cool.
Yeah.
And Mark gave me a lot of suggestions too of ones
Yeah.
that he was familiar with.
This is like perfect. I mean, like you know the buildings. You know what I mean. You are the photographer. You just get. This is like the perfect match. Like
Yeah.
that you wouldn't even think of. Normally, you think of like an artist helping the writer. It's all like drawings or it's land based. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's not like thousands of feet in the air.
Yeah, well, it turned out we had really, a great teamwork, effort
Yeah.
putting the book together. But yeah, when you're asking about the stories, once Chris would have a building that he wanted, and I would look inside to see, for instance, in here, I want to know about the two C's in
Yeah.
the
Right.
Yeah.
carbide and carbon building.
Yeah.
You can see them in the lobby, so I want to say things like that. The lobby's still original. It
Right.
still has the original bronze doors and stuff like that. But I'd also want to know how many stories tall it was, and that's
Yeah.
something that isn't always accurate.
It's yeah.
Right.
But and then most of the research, I would look at old archival newspapers. So I would look at what the Chicago Tribune wrote about this newspaper and the architects and the people behind its construction in 1928 when it's
Wow.
first announced.
Yeah.
Because those the coverage then is so much
Right.
fun.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, like there's a sense of wonder.
Yeah.
It's not history then.
Right.
It's
Right.
new. It's a new technology,
Yeah.
and that's something that I think gets lost sometimes when we're talking about a building that's almost 100 years old.
Yeah.
Is that it still looks beautiful, and Art Deco even still looks modern.
Mm-hmm.
But these old buildings, we sometimes forget or don't quite see how exciting and new
Right.
and super tall these
Yeah.
were too.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one
Yeah.
of the tallest buildings in the city back
Right.
then.
You have to be like living in that time. We talked about this before. I couldn't imagine seeing something that big go up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
And one of my favorite things to do as we're walking around, because we do explore the city a lot on foot, is to always look at these buildings and just look at the little motifs in the
Exactly like
facade
you
of the
said.
building. And I'm just like, I can imagine the day that the building opened or what business, and now there's like a Subway in the first floor. But like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, what was here? And that always like a rabbit hole of research that you want to learn all about how it started or why it exists.
Yeah.
So like, I definitely relate to that portion of the research for sure.
That's terrific. And,
Yeah.
and the even the construction is amazing. I'm
Right.
going to show some slides when I was some of the photographs during the construction of this. So the foundation's dug in August of 1928.
yeah.
The building opens in like spring of 1929.
Right.
Wow.
So they're putting the walls, the framework
beams,
up,
yeah.
and then the terracotta on the exterior, that beautiful dark green
Yeah.
and gold.
Yeah.
Off the lake
Yeah.
in the winter
Yes.
in
Right.
Chicago.
Yes.
There was someone up on a girder in
Risking it
December.
all.
Right.
Yeah.
Put
They
it,
didn't
I
have
mean,
unions,
with,
no.
Yeah.
Can you believe? I mean,
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
And, like hearing you think about it, because like that time frame, for those that don't know, Art Deco really didn't kick off until Paris, right? Right, like right
Like
around
the-
like 19
the
World's
World's
Fair
Fair
for
of
Paris,
Paris,
right? And so Art Deco is new at this time, like especially this building, you know, being around.
Right, right.
How long have like what have you learned about Art Deco and like even you visually, like, you know, about these buildings in your research?
Can I do history real quick and then?
Yeah, go for it.
So historically, you're right that the term Art Deco comes from a show in Paris in 1925 of decorative arts, but they didn't really call this kind of architecture that or that kind of design until like the 60s and 70s. So back then they just called it modern.
Right,
Right? They didn't have a
Yeah.
special term for it. But you're right. What's kind of there had already been skyscrapers for decades, but they were done in these old classical styles or
Yep.
Renaissance, or like the Wrigley Building is
Yeah.
kind of French Renaissance, or the Tribune Tower is
Right.
Gothic.
Yes.
Right.
That was a very popular late teens and early 20s style of architecture. And then suddenly people wanted something that looked a little bit more modern
Yeah.
and machine age.
Yeah.
And that lasted until the Great Depression. So I'm like not quite even a decade.
Yeah, no.
And then that was the end of that era.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that prior to the study, like you think of just the Chrysler Building, Empire State, and you think of the stainless steel, and that streamlined, modern, and like
Yeah.
trains, transportation. But I realized how like hazy it is, and in the book especially, like there's a ton of that influence of Gothic, of like Moorish, of even like Aztec, Native American
Yep.
stuff. Like
Yep. Yep.
it's not so clean as like just that Chrysler Building look.
Right.
And yeah, it's like nothing in the real world is like, it's not like they just all of a sudden all the buildings
Yeah.
are this style.
Right.
Like these other
Right.
influences,
Yeah.
you know, snuck
Yeah.
in. So I like to just kind of expand what is considered Art Deco through
Yeah.
the book. But when you look online, like a building that looks Gothic, they call it Art Deco
Yeah.
with Gothic influence.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
all a little hazy.
And
Yeah.
Chicago has a bunch of stuff.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much Gothic.
I feel like architecture is similar to art in the way of, I mean, art could be different
Whatever,
people can
yeah.
name it different things or can call it different. I guess there are specific kind of like styles,
Yeah.
but within those styles, there's so much variation.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense for sure.
How has this? I got it's kind of a two-part for both. Each one of you can answer. How has this helped you with your photography? And I know this is primarily drone, but like, did this shape change how you look and see things now?
I would say less than like in the images themselves. It's actually more like in the project structure. So I did a previous project, like I said, with the row homes, and I did 100 images, and I did a whole summer, which gave me the confidence of like when you start on a project like this, it's like these buildings are all over the country. How much
Right.
money is this going to cost?
Yeah.
How am I gonna give up after
Yeah.
I do
Right.
20? Like
Right.
to have the confidence in myself and my vision through the dark days too,
Yeah.
of like when
Right.
I'm not feeling inspired
yeah.
or when like, you know, people aren't buying the prints.
Yep.
Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So to stick through, so like that's a big lesson learned that I'm gonna bring into like, you know, future projects of like you just gotta stick to it
Yeah.
and keep grinding. You know, and it
I know.
gets
I hear.
better.
Oh, I know. It's. I'm a photographer. I get it. And I got some more questions we can ask later
We
too.
literally
But
have 5 seconds
I know that.
before the no. it's
before the.
for
Oh, I'm.
yeah.
Oh, we're fine.
Go a little
okay.
late.
Same question for you though, but like from the aspect of you are a writer, right? So how does this, you know, change the way you think about like the imagery that's in, you know, the books that you write?
Right, right. And stories. That's a great question. A challenge about writing a book like this is we just talked about the Art Deco era
Yeah.
of skyscrapers lasts from about the mid 20s
Yeah.
until about the 1932 or so.
Yep.
And then no one's building skyscrapers anymore for 15 years
Right.
because there's a depression and then there's
Yep.
a war. So every story could be, and then everyone ran out of
Yeah,
money,
yeah.
and then the
Yep.
company
Yeah.
went bankrupt,
Yep.
and that would make for a depressing book.
Yep.
But I like thinking about how like buildings or houses in your neighborhood get more interesting to you
Yep.
when you know the people that
Exactly.
live there.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
I wanted to tell stories about the building's character when there's something like this one that's so unique, that green color, which is frankly, it's literally was made to look like the color of a champagne bottle.
Yep.
Wow.
But and that was the request from the company, Union Carbide.
Yep.
But also the people behind it. So like the architects, so the people who built this building
Burnham son.
are the sons
Yeah.
of Daniel Burnham.
Yep.
So it's like it's a beautiful legacy, and it's also kind of personally touching because I just found out the other day, I was looking at Daniel Burnham Jr., who founds the Burnham Brothers
Yeah.
company.
Yep.
He got his license, he took his licensing exam to become an architect in the state of Illinois the same month that they buried his dad.
Wow. Wow.
So, I
this
mean,
was a dream fulfilled
Yeah,
to
it
continue
really
a
is.
legacy.
That
yeah.
makes it seem more
Yeah.
meaningful. This is his
Yeah.
swan song. This is his final
Yeah.
skyscraper
Right.
project.
Yeah.
He and his brother Hubert, Dan Jr. and Hubert. But they went on to, do the Chicago World's Fair in
Yeah.
1933,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like their dad
Right.
had organized
And-
the
and-
World's Fair in 1893.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's this beautiful father-son
Yeah.
passing on a
Yeah.
tradition
That is so
and
dope.
a legacy that they left for Chicago.
Yeah, that's very dope.
Do all of the buildings fall within certain years, or is it just Art Deco at any point in time?
Yeah, it's mostly years, and back to that like blend of styles. I just started to group all these skyscrapers that happened in like 1925 to 1935 maybe
Yeah.
together. So yeah, more so strict on that time period than on the style itself, I suppose.
Would you still consider a building Art Deco if it wasn't built during the time period
No.
that style was? Okay.
It's got to be Deco Revival, like the
Yeah.
one in
Right.
Chicago that has the buttresses. That's
Yep.
inspired by the NBC building.
Yep.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah, that one. Yeah, it has to be Neo Deco. It's not the
Right.
same.
Gotcha.
It can't be in the same
That's a good
category as
question
this.
because we that's a good point. So like all this Art Deco stuff that you see people make and create, that's not real. That doesn't feel authentic till you do it. Like it like
I guess
it
not,
doesn't
not-
feel
it's not that it's inauthentic.
No, no, no,
it's
I
just
know,
like
but
it
like-
doesn't fall in that same category.
right. But like I'm gonna be honest, that don't seem real to me. Like you just, I like that old school vibe,
Yeah.
the stuff that. Yeah.
I like the point you're making, and I'm sympathetic to it because one thing that Art Deco definitely represents was a desire by the designers and architects of the 19 teens and 20s, an avant-garde group.
Yeah.
We got to stop making these brand new technological marvels, these
Yeah.
Right.
new tall buildings that no one's seen before, and now they exist. But no one can think of what to put on them, how they should look. So we're
Right.
making them
Right.
look like Greek and Roman temples
Yeah.
or Gothic cathedrals. And we invented a new kind of architecture.
Right.
It deserves a new
Yeah.
vernacular,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
new
Right.
fashion,
Yes.
Right.
right?
Yes.
So if you're making a building that looks like Art Deco now,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like making a building in 1899 that looks
Right.
like a Greek temple.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
yes.
guess
Yeah.
that's
You,
fair.
you're making a pyramid or something like you know
So-
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
It might be great, it might be
Yeah.
cool to look at,
Yeah.
but it isn't as innovative.
Yeah.
Right.
It's now
Right.
borrowing from a cool old
Yes.
style. It's
Yes.
like a PT Cruiser.
Right.
yeah,
Right.
boy, don't get me started. Them ugly things. I'm sorry, Chrysler, but that's Dodge, whatever. That's a horrible car.
So, what would you say is one of your favorite? I know there's a ton of great architecture
Yeah,
in Chicago,
I was gonna
but
say.
what is like a standout building for you that you just love to look at?
We're in it. We're in it. It's
Yeah.
the Car by Carbon.
Yeah, you
It's-
got
It's
your-
on the cover of the book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I also built a model of it, and I spent a month of my life, 12-hour days, over 200 hours. It's downstairs. We can look at
Wow.
it.
Oh, we got to go. I ain't.
Yeah, and
what?
So I just pour like a month of my life. I
Yeah.
dedicated to understanding every single little tiny detail.
Holy.
It helps that
So-
you're an architect. So
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
So I've spent. It's not just like, oh, I like to look at it. It's
Yeah.
like I'm
Yeah.
obsessed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
unhealthy. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. Well, I get it. Yeah, yeah.
that.
I 100%. This
Yeah.
is the building. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's unique.
Yeah, this is dope.
when we were talking about what the cover should look like, I remember there was either the idea of using a bunch or just one. And once it was just one, there was no other one it could possibly be.
Yeah.
This
Yep.
is there. We still get people saying, "Is that a real building?" Like if you're not
Right.
from
Yeah,
Chicago,
you
you,
don't-
may
yeah.
you may
It's-
never have seen it.
Yes.
And
It
it's hard
seems-
to imagine that it's almost 100 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I mean, look at. I mean,
so
and then
beautiful.
and then what's cool about that is that you're just showing the top of the building.
Right.
Like the bottom half of the building, like 75% of the building is different. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it just. So there's so much more to that. But that's a good ass picture. I'm
trying to catch
sorry,
your
it's like,
drone
that's a
in
good.
the- in-
That's a good.
Yeah, that one
the
has.
window.
That one I sell more
Wow.
prints of
That's
than
a-
any others. I say so, and I love it. Every time I get to print it, I have a printer at home, so every time the print comes out and I just look at it.
You're like,
yeah.
wow, I took this.
Hey, yeah, this
Oh, wow.
is legendary right here. We're not gonna hold you too much longer. We know we
got
look-
time, we got
I
time.
know, but like still, like I hate being late.
I don't want to take away from other
What time
people.
even is it?
Yeah,
almost
we're
1:30.
good. Okay. Here's the last question, then I can ask it. What's next for either one of you, together or individually? What's
Yeah,
next?
well, I just bought a house.
Oh,
That's next for
congratulations!
me.
Yeah, yeah. So you need more books.
You're like,
Yeah, buy the book.
Buy the book.
My house is in shambles. I mean, I'm worried to go back to Philly because I tore off a bunch of like lath and plastic.
Yeah.
It's a 100-year-old row home built in.
Oh wow.
Well, it said built in 1930, and then I did some investigating in old maps, and it's more like 1870 or something. So I have like a
Wow.
150-year-old house to fix up. So
Oh my God.
Send,
That's amazing.
Electric,
send thoughts and
plumbing,
prayers. All of it.
all
Yeah,
of
all-
it.
yeah.
all of it.
Yeah.
It's all trash.
So
By
he's
the
a
book.
busy
It's
guy.
full of
Yeah, yeah,
termites
yeah.
too. There
Oh,
are
no.
millions of termites in my wall right now eating my house.
Thanks for hanging with us, though. We appreciate your time.
You're like stressed going through
One of my
it.
guys coming next week, and
Yeah.
they're just gonna keep eating.
You dissociate in the middle of the interview.
That's
There's
what-
nothing left.
well, yeah, at least you got a good spirit about it.
yeah.
What another thing is that if we can at least stabilize the building for the time being,
Right, yeah.
there's events like this and events like we've had at the Chicago Architecture Center throughout the summer. And that's another week, and then that's leaving. But it's going to Detroit, so we're going to be in the Great Guardian Building, which is also in the book for a month for their month of design. After that, we're going to Pittsburgh. We've already had an exhibition in Philly. We're working on details to have them in other places. Los Angeles is, we're working
y'all
on
busy.
possibly.
Yeah.
So
Y'all
there's
busy,
that kind of stuff. And the other good news, as far as we're concerned, I think, is that it's a popular book. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we've almost totally sold out of our first printing of
That's
a couple
amazing.
thousand copies. And
That's
so we're
awesome.
printing a second printing of it
Yeah.
right now as we speak. That's loading up on the
termites,
yeah,
presses.
for the termite. That's
Yeah.
the termite.
We're going to distract them.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
stick it all around the foundation of the house and
That's-
spray Fritos or something on it.
Yeah, that is so dope. I'm honestly happy for you all, man. Like honestly,
I can't
y'all
wait to flip
go
through it.
to if you see it, you got about a week left. This will air the same week that it's going. So go out and see them over at the Chicago Architect Center. Also get your shirt from the Chicago Architect Center from us. So
And they've got the book there too.
they
They've
got the
some.
book
You
there.
can
There
pick
you
one
go.
up for your audience can get their own copy.
There you go.
go ahead.
We'll link the website.
Yeah, we
too.
gonna link
Yeah.
everything.
Sweet,
We gonna link
sweet,
everything. Honestly,
Excellent.
it is. I said it before. I said it again. So dope to meet y'all after
Yeah,
seeing.
for real.
Didn't even think this was possible. You know, like so. It's really cool to kind of see and talk to the folks that put this together. And man, y'all are cool too. Like this
Yeah,
is.
thanks.
It's
fun
Thanks,
to
you
chat.
guys are
Yeah.
cool.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, you know.
Is this the most fun podcast? No offense to other podcasts.
No. Say
No
it. It's
offense.
okay.
Most
Okay.
fun
Offend-
podcast
offend them.
interview.
We've had so many over Zoom that it's
Yeah,
not
this
the
is a-
same.
oh,
as,
this is-
Yeah.
having a nice little lounge
Absolutely.
area in the
No.
corner of my favorite building.
Right.
You know, it's all good vibes. So.
And on that note, soundbite.
All right, so right now we're walking down Calhoun Place, which is named after John Calhoun,
John Calhoun.
who started the first newspaper. So the alley that we're walking down right now used to be nicknamed Newspaper Alley, and it was where the newspaper boys would come in the morning and pick up their newspapers.
Ha!
And
That's crazy.
almost like most publications in the city use this alley for their newspapers to go out. But I did want to share a kind of an interesting fact, considering that he was the founder of the first newspaper here in Chicago. His first print or few were actually the only piece in them that was original was the editorial. Everything else was taken from other newspapers in other cities. So
Oh,
he
wow.
would take verbatim the entire article
Wow.
and put it in his newspaper.
Well, I guess that makes sense because you ain't got nobody, no editors and nothing like that.
Right.
Chicago didn't
And-
have no paper. You know
right.
what I mean? Wasn't nobody doing that.
And there other cities had papers that were already established, so he was like, I'll just take from them and he'll do the editorial piece.
Dang, plagiarism at its finest.
Right. But yeah, I mean, obviously they didn't do that for much longer
Yeah.
after that.
Let's hop
Yeah,
over here,
let's
boy.
hop
Hey,
over the
this
water.
rain out here, boy. You see what we go through for y'all, man. Like, this is a mess.
Are you guys, comment if you like rain or you hate rain.
Comment.
Are you a rain person or a non-rain person?
I'm gonna let my lady go first
Oh,
here.
thank
Go
you.
ahead. Look, chivalry. It ain't. Your boy don't want to get the Jordans messed up though.
Wow.
You know what
Wow.
I'm saying? No, I'm just playing.
not
No, I'm
chivalry.
just playing. I'm just playing. She had her
More
stuff on
of-
too, so she had her
Oh
stuff
my
on.
God, shit.
Oh shit. Fuck. All right, so we walked down the alley from where are we at? That was on LaSalle,
Clark?
LaSalle all the way down to Clark, and
State.
State. I'm sorry, and there's no mention
of this being a national historic landmark.
Yeah.
But it is. We did the research and we can't confirm. Not everything has a plaque, or at least we didn't find it. But what we are going to do is we're going to go back down there so that we can talk about the building that's on the corner
Yeah.
there. So
Did you know that this alley was also called Gambler's Alley at some point because it was lined
shit, let me
with
tell you,
gambling houses?
it's a gamble to walk down that bad boy. Tell you. You know what I'm saying? Change the plans, y'all. We still walking down alleys, man.
So it's between Madison and Washington is what it says.
Madison and Washington. I think I said this was LaSalle. I'm sorry.
This is
This is Clark. We just
This
got
is
on,
Clark, yeah.
but yeah. So we we're in between Madison and Washington, going east-west. We trying to get to see where this is. So looks like on this old ass map that we found, LaSalle is kind of like the place. So
yeah.
stay tuned, y'all. We gonna find this shit.
We're gonna try at
Yeah,
least.
you know what I'm saying? All right, so we are down the alley on the LaSalle end where it says it should be.
But it's not.
It's not. There's no plaque. I think it's just in history that's what it is. But what we're gonna do, there's this small
Little
alley,
side alley.
little side alley that looks like it very well could have been a street. Watch the step here, because I don't know, that looks suspicious. But this is a pretty dope alley, kinda.
It's kind of a
Yeah, this is what
odd
the
one.
hell? Ugh. Bro, that shit fell right in my mouth. I don't know what the fuck this is. This shit crazy though. Well, we definitely shouldn't be down here.
yeah, no.
Okay, well.
Let's say, oh, watch out.
Ooh, what?
Poop.
All right, y'all, we just gonna end this episode because it's not, the sign is not here.
Yeah.
But just trust us, the history is there.
It was newspaper Newsboy Alley.
Yes.
At some point, but the last nickname was Calhoun Place,
Yeah.
and that's what it's officially called by the city.
Yeah, and the real point that we wanted to bring by being here, the second point I should say, is that this building right here, that was where the Chicago Democrat actually printed.
Correct.
So, not this building, obviously.
It was in a skyscraper in 1833.
Right, you know what I'm saying? But this is where the location where they printed.
Printed. Correct. Yeah.
Boom. So,
There you go.
this is on Calhoun
I hope
Place.
you
So,
learned some shit,
yeah, for real.
and if you didn't, that's fine. But if you did learn,
What is that?
subscribe.
Okay.
Thumbs up.
Okay.
Go ahead, like this video and subscribe, and leave us a comment about what your favorite part of the video was.
me almost busting my shit, stepping in dog shit, or human
Shit, actually.
or us saying shit so much on this,
Correct.
or walking down an alley.
That too.
Just
All right. Well,
random.
we'll see you next time.